next week's update in World of Tanks console is gonna be crazy, and that is because they're releasing 2 new black vehicles that I actually think are really cool, although I do have a few worries as to how they're going to balance the game with these vehicles, and given that they are on PC, or at least one of them is, I'm not entirely sure whether this is a good thing for the game, but it's definitely something that looks really, really cool, and I definitely think that I'll be testing both of these vehicles out to give you an overview as to what they are. But in today's video, we're going to cover everything Wargaming have given us regarding both of these vehicles that will be coming next Tuesday, along with all of the other update news for World of Tanks. And of course, the number one is the new TL7 Black and the Bofors Tornvang Black, which is 2 new premium tanks, one being the Tier 8, which is the Bofors Tornvang, and also the TL7, which is the Tier 9 vehicle that is a tank destroyer. So let's first look at the Tier 9, since this is the one that probably you've never seen, I don't think, in World of Tanks. And of course, this is a Tier 9 tank destroyer with hefty bonuses. So this is the first premium Tier 9 vehicle that you will see in the game that rewards silver for playing a Tier 9. And this is actually something kind of cool. I mean, I don't really have a problem with people playing Tier 9 vehicles that also earn silver, since, you know, there's no real reason Wargaming can't do this. But you can see here, it has an absolutely massive gun on this thing. And of course, it looks somewhat similar to the TL1, which is the autoloading Tier 8 American tank. However, this one is, of course, got the same sort of hull armor, but obviously has this different turret with, of course, the much larger gun. But what are the statistics of this vehicle Wargaming have given us, along with the armor model? You can see here, looking like the turret is fairly strong. It's got these spaced plates on the side of it. I assume that the actual armor of this thing can be probably penned by a lot of things, since it has got this massive cupola. The lower plate looks pretty trash, and the upper plate is probably one that you can pen anyway. If we look at this sort of area, you can probably pen in this region here, and obviously on this region here in terms of the live model if they try and side scrape. Or alternatively, if you're above them, which with the TL1 kind of hull armor that you typically get, you're actually above it, so you can shoot down on top of it, and therefore you can pen this quite nicely as well. Or you could just go for the turret armor. Either one you can see here. So armor model wise, it doesn't look outrageously amazing. I don't think it's going to be an Object 279E on PC, but yeah, I mean, let's have a look at what the vehicle's statistics actually say about it. So number 1, it plays up to Tier 10, obviously. Silver bonus, it gets 25% silver bonus when playing this vehicle, which, to be honest with you, is pretty lame. It's not really that big of a bonus. I mean, it will essentially pay for your premium ammo if you wanted to fire full premium, basically, I expect. It also gets 75% more tank XP, so this is when you play your tank, you'll get 75% more XP, which means you can basically use this if you want to gold skip a load of things and essentially convert your XP into kind of free XP and then use it on whatever you want. This tank is going to earn you almost like double the XP. Obviously, it's 1.75 times the XP, but you know what I mean. But with premium bonus and the extras that you can put on, this could probably go up to probably 2 times XP, if not more than that. You're looking at the tank XP overall. Of course, this vehicle has 1500 hit points. It's got 480 engine power, which means the power to weight ratio is okay, 17.14, speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour, which is, I don't know, pretty mediocre. It's not that fast, but, it might be pretty decent. 24 degrees a second turret traverse, which is okay. 30 degrees a second hull traverse, which is okay. Gun depression 10 degrees, really, really nice to have. Gun elevation 15 degrees, not particularly amazing. Gun penetration, you've got 252, which is pretty much tier 10 medium tank penetration as the standard round, so you're probably not going to have too much worry in terms of penning things. And of course, if you do need the premium round, 315 pen is more than enough to go through most things. With 105 HE rounds, or they may even be Hesh, I'm not entirely sure, but essentially, yeah, 105 pen on HE to deal 460 alpha. It's actually pretty good when you consider that, you can come up against things like Batchats, and actually that's better than the 268, which is the tier 10 tank destroyer, which only has 90 pen. So yeah, I think that maybe taking a clip of HE would actually not be the worst thing in the world, and given the fact that I've just said clip, it is an autoloader, so has 360 alpha per shell. It has 1440 total damage in the clip because it has a 4-shot autoloader, and so that means that you can deal 1440 damage in a single clip. 2.7 second aim time is pretty mediocre, accuracy of 0.4, which is also not amazing either, 5.22 rounds a minute, meaning the DPM is absolutely atrocious, 1879 damage per minute. That is nearly 50%, well, it probably is in the region of about 50% worse than what you'll see from a tier 7 heavy tank in the form of the Tiger 131. So it has worse DPM than the Tiger 131, I believe, and almost like half of the DPM of the Tiger 131, which is 2 tiers lower, so the damage per minute is awful. Intraclip reload 2 seconds, which means when you combine the 40-second reload, you add on an extra 3 lots of 2 seconds, so you've got a 46-second reload to deal 1440 damage, which is why this vehicle has such a terrible damage per minute. Now, my problem with this is that if you guys kind of re-roll time back just a week or two ago, when Wargaming decided, you know what, I'm going to release the Cobra T54, which is a heavy tank that can go in the region of about 60 kilometers an hour using the speed boost mechanic that it gets. It can activate basically what you get in the Polish mediums, the CS63. It can activate that. It has probably better turret armor than this thing does. It also probably has better hull armor than this thing does. And it also has better accuracy, better DPM, a better aim time. It's faster. I mean, the list goes on. And it's also a tier 9. So if you were to buy one of them, I would definitely recommend not buying this one unless you really wanted the extra tank XP bonus comparatively to the other one. So yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, the tank itself is probably pretty balanced. It's probably not that overpowered, which is something that we like in the game. And so, thumbs up from me. I absolutely think it's pretty good. But in terms of if you want a competitive tank and you're weighing up the option, should I or should I not buy this over something like the Cobra T54? If you want the better tank, the Cobra T54 is the one to go. And this is definitely lower down the pile, if not at one of the bottom tanks that you should probably be buying. But as Wargaming say, it's a support tank from high ground or in hold down combat, but remember the massive cupola pretty much negates any real hold down combat that you're going to ever come into, so yeah, there's basically no real armor on this thing, and especially when everyone's firing premium, you'll probably find that they pen the cheeks of this thing as well just before the spaced armor begins. So yeah, not entirely sure that this thing is going to be all that good, but there are some advantages of playing this. It does get 370 meters view range, which means you may be able to actually to spot some things in this thing comparatively to the Cobra T54, which I believe gets 360 view range. I mean, I might be wrong, it might even have the same, in which case there is literally no reason why you'd play this over the T54 if you had the option, but it's a cool looking tank. I kind of like the look of it. Of course, from the side, it almost looks like a beastie version of a Barat, or a Barask, as it's actually called within the game. It's kind of got that weird profile. But yeah, I think it could be an interesting one to play. And of course, I'll do a full review next week, so stay tuned for that. But I wanted to give a good overview of the tank and, initial thoughts as to whether maybe you should buy it. We'll get into the price later on, but let's first look at the Tier 8 Bofors Tornvang and how this thing actually compares and whether you should pick this one up. So of course, let's go into the pictures just so that you get an understanding of what the tank is. This is the side profile. It's a Swedish heavy tank, which means that you've effectively got that terrible Swedish side armor, which you basically get penned in every single time if anyone can see it, so that's basically not very good. The side of the turret is also pretty much paper as well, so if anyone catches that, they'll be able to go through. It kind of gets that Concept 1B looking bulbous area here, which you basically don't really want to shoot at all. You can see the turret is very, very thin and primarily aimed at just basically making it very difficult for anyone to fire at you. It's essentially just a big space where the gun comes back into the turret and not a lot of room either side for anything else. So Bofors Tornvang looks pretty nice. Now, you're seeing here the armor model of this vehicle, and this is where the Bofors is super, super boring, and you compare it to that of the PC version, and if you've ever watched any videos on it, I'm sure that if you play World of Tanks console, you probably watch some videos. I'm sure Quickie Baby or someone like that has done a video on the Bofors Tornvang, and it's essentially this very boring vehicle where if this thing gets it hulled down on top of ridgeline, you basically can't do anything against it because you basically just don't have the penetration to be able to pen it anywhere, so it can be really, really annoying to come up against. And it's one of those things where Wargaming introduce it as kind of this hold down beast, which means that if you come up against this thing in anything that doesn't really have armor, you've basically got to YOLO it or just leave, because there's no point in fighting this thing on a ridgeline, albeit maybe tier 10 tank destroyers might be able to just pen through the turret. I'm not entirely sure. Depends on how thick Wargaming on console have made it. It would be nice if in the future they actually introduced like a little key just to tell us what the armor thicknesses are when they show this, because at the minute it just tells me this is the the thickest armor plate here. And on the turret, then it goes to the side plates here, which are then the next thickest, along with this bar here on the turret. Then it goes to the upper area on the turret here, and then probably looking at maybe this area here, then the green, then the turquoise. Yeah, it would be nice to just know how thick the armor is as to whether we can make an assumption that you can pen certain things. But given the fact that this is basically just an absolute monster when it gets on a ridgeline, what are the statistics of the vehicle, and can it actually stay on that ridgeline for any length of time at tier 8? So, first thing, it does get a silver bonus, so 50% extra silver, which is nice. 1600 hit points, which is also very nice. Engine power, 500 hit points, or horsepower, sorry, not hit points. 11.63 power to weight, which means this is very, very sluggish. Getting up to top speed is going to be annoying, as well as the fact that the top speed limit is only 32 kilometers an hour, so it's not very mobile, which means this tank is very boring. Like, if you want to move around the map and you're interested in playing medium tank playstyle, then this tank is probably not for you. It's kind of this hold down monster that essentially once it's got to that ridge line or wherever it's going to get held down, it doesn't really ever move. And so it's very difficult for people to have like outstanding, outrageous games in the Tornvang. But I guess that's kind of dependent on your playstyle. Gun depression 10 degrees, which means it can use those ridge lines very, very well. The penetration is also fantastic for a tier 8 premium heavy tank, 248mm with 297 premium pen, so very similar to that of the tier 9 that we saw with the tank destroyer above. 400 alpha. Really decent, 2.3 second aim time, which is actually fairly good for a heavy tank, but 0.44 accuracy is just horrible. But of course, with all of the accuracy boost that we have on console, along with vertical stabilizer, this accuracy basically doesn't really mean anything. I mean, accuracy on World of Tanks console is just never a problem, to be honest with you, in my opinion. It gets 4 rate of fire rounds a minute, so yeah, I mean, pretty lame. It's not really that good. 15-second reload, 1600 damage per minute. So think of this like a Swedish version of the 2022 version of the T-34, the heavy tank from the American tech tree that was like kind of one of those tanks that was really good back in the day, at least in terms of its armor model, the turret armor, and kind of the gun statistics. This is kind of the 2022 version that is just basically better in every single way, and of course gets the way better turret armor than the T-34 does. Slightly worse gun handling, but yeah, it's kind of that sort of version. Very bad DPM, but yeah, it seems like the black tanks, or at least the ones they've released, aren't very good in terms of the damage per minute. So I wouldn't think that anyone's going to be having like 10k damage games in the Tornvang. At least I'd hope not, because that would be like 6 minutes of constant firing. But there we go. Of course, view range 360 meters is actually not bad for a heavy. Nothing spectacular, but you're probably looking that this thing is not going to be that great. Spotting opponents at tier 8 maybe. I don't know. It depends how you run your tank, whether you want to go for the speed boost to actually be able to get somewhere in the game, or if you're going for coated optics and stuff like that to increase your view range and make yourself a little bit more versatile when it comes to finding opponents. Signal range 850, I mean, pretty bog standard to be honest. 1 week only, so this is the prices of them. So if you want to pick up both of them, you can pick up them both for a 50% savings and get them for 13,900 gold, which, to be honest with you, for a tier 9 premium, the first one as well, and a tier 8 premium, 13,900 gold, although it is like £40, is not the worst thing in the world, considering they are brand new vehicles in the game. I don't think it's that bad, but am I endorsing you to go out and spend £40 on these vehicles? Absolutely not. I don't think that these are necessarily the most overpowered, the most fun, the most interesting playstyles that you can pick up within World of Tanks console, and there are better tanks that you could probably pick up. But at the end of the day, it's down to you. You have your own money. You can spend whatever you want to on the game, and I don't think it would be the worst thing if you did have 13,900 gold sat around to purchase these tanks, because remember, black tanks only come on sale during very, very limited events, and of course, Black Friday, which is where they originated from. So yeah, I think it's kind of, it's down to you at the end of the day, but that's my opinion. I probably wouldn't go out and spend £40 myself on these if I was just playing the game very casually. But yeah, if you are more of a collector, then you probably would want to pick these tanks up, since you don't know when they'll next come around on sale, and especially with the 50% discount that they currently have. So then, that's both of these premium tanks that are being released in World of Tanks console, and of course a more in-depth look at those. But Wargaming have also released some very interesting information about the most recent matchmaker changes. So if you've been playing World of Tanks console in the recent times, you've probably noticed that there's been a little bit of an issue with how long it's taking to get into games, and that is because Wargaming is saying the artillery changes that they implemented into the game, limiting how many artillery can be on one side, has meant that the average wait time to get into a game is much longer. So if you can look at this graph here on the screen, you'll see that the average wait time, which is denoted on the left, so you're seeing the bottom line here, pretty much shows you how long it's taking to get into a game. This is the minimum time. Of course, the top of it is the maximum time, which is essentially during like the non-peak time. So if you're, for example, in the UK playing at like, I don't know, 4 in the morning, you're probably going to have the longer wait times, whereas the average wait time is probably somewhere in the middle, where you're waiting maybe a minute or something like that. Probably less, to be honest. It's usually like 20 seconds in peak times when you play. But of course, it can go up to way higher when there's basically no one playing online. Of course, during this update, you can see, since the artillery changes, or the matchmaker changes, that the average wait time has kind of come up from this region here, so you're almost waiting nearly twice as long, maybe even like 33%, like a third extra time to be able to get into a game. And I myself have personally found that it's taken longer to get into games. I've had games where I'm like, hang on a minute, it's like 7 o'clock in the evening, which is pretty much peak time for World of Tanks console, with like 18,000 people online, and it takes you like 2 minutes to get into a game for some reason. But you know, that's just how it is, and hopefully Wargaming will sort this out. And in doing so, and they've potentially removed one of the changes that they've done, and we'll get into the kind of update news for next week in particular, but this is a kind of a wider topic that Wargaming have been talking about, which was essentially on October 4th, they made a change to the World War II matchmaker, like we've mentioned, about artillery being limited to just 1 artillery per team. Now what they're saying is that because the negative impact on the matchmaker, they're now reintroducing 3 artillery per team. So we all know what that means. It means, yes, we're going to get missed by 3 and T92 artillery players. It also means it's going to be really annoying playing up against artillery again. So yeah, it's one of those things that I'm sure you probably have your own opinion about them bringing back in 3 artillery per team. So this is what they've said. At first, we investigated if this had any negative impact on the matchmaking and waiting times. We saw an unusual spike in queue times and more players being matched with bots in random battles, especially players in platoons, artillery, and in high tiers during peak hours. We also saw a lot of messages from you, our players, that have pointed out this on both occasions, longer waiting times and more bot matches. After our investigation, we found out that this was caused as a direct result of the 1 artillery per team limitation. We will understand that the majority of the community likes this change, and we want to keep it as 1 artillery per team, but we did a bunch of simulation testing that proved that this is very bad for the health of the matchmaker. Yay. Looks like 3 artillery will be returning to the game as it was prior to this season. So please understand this is an effort to maintain a healthy matchmaker and get players into more matches, not only quicker, but against more players instead of more bots. However, it was certainly worth bringing to attention the interesting observations we picked up during the time was set to 1 per team. You, the community, have expressed a lot of positivity and comments about this, as I'm sure you in person have actually commented on loads of the videos talking about the artillery. We've done a few videos myself where we talked about artillery, and I genuinely thought 1 artillery per team is actually quite a nice thing that they brought in. We're continuing to explore the option to make 1 artillery per team a permanent solution as the matchmaker will allow it. Currently discussing an adaptive limit that could basically strictly set 1 artillery per team, but then if it's during peak hours, they'll increase it to 3 players, 3 artillery per team. They'll need to revisit the design of the matchmaker to support it, blah, 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 blah. Basically, we're adding the 3 artillery per team. I guess you can consider this as another step in the efforts of tackling the Artillery 2.0 initiative. So, of course, for those of you that don't know, Wargaming are currently investigating artillery and trying to nerf them or make them a little bit more balanced, but they have no idea what to do and they're basically stuck in the mud. And of course, this is just another kind of back step, I'm guessing, in what they were trying to do with artillery and make them less annoying for the majority of the player base. But now we've got them back into the matchmaker with 3 per team, so yay. I mean, that was a lot of talking. I'm interested to see what you guys actually have to say, because this is just my opinion. Maybe you think that having 3 artillery in the game is a fantastic idea and that it's so fun, but yeah, me personally, absolutely not. But there we go. Now, let's jump back into the update news, and in specific for next week. Of course, if you want to check out last week's update news, then go back and check out the video at the end of this, which covers everything that has come in if you've missed it last week. But this week, Thanksgiving, Turkey Treats a free bundle in the store for everyone to claim. Basically, what happens during this is you can go in to the store. There's usually a special tab or a bundles tab or something in that region where you can go in. It will be priced at £0, 0 pence, and it's essentially just a like a times 5 XP boost or something like that, with like times 2 silver boosts and then some little goodies that are basically very small but also pretty nice to have for free. And of course, you can pick that up on Tuesday next week. All weekend you can get 5 times XP on your daily first wins, which is really nice. Black Tanks return for Black Friday with 2 new additions: the Tier 9 American Tank Destroyer, the TO7 Black, which is of course the tank that we went through at the beginning, and the Tier 8 Swedish Heavy, the Tornvagn Black, which is also what we went through at the beginning. There's also Cyber Monday deals going on from the Vault bundle, so this is really nice as well. And an on-track event to the Object 140, which is a vehicle I will do a full review on for you guys next week, so you'll be able to see the Object 140 and everything that you need to know about that tank too. So stay tuned. Of course, if you aren't already, then do subscribe. But before we leave, let's take a look at what Wargaming have said in the question and answer segment that they always do on their live streams discussing the update news. So, can we get a better filter in the stats page? We do have a ticket for this. blah, 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 blah. I can already summarise what they'll say, but we're prioritising other things, and yeah, this will basically be thrown in the closet for when we basically never have time to actually do it. It's currently in our backlog, but it's possible we could snake this in an update if other things get done faster than expected. So this is your typical answer. I very much doubt that this will come into the game anytime soon, so don't get your hopes up. When will we get Transformers season? This will require a license we don't have, and if we did, the license would prevent us from talking about it. Why? I think this was obviously a meme question. No one actually wants Transformers into World of Tanks console, or at least I really hope not. I mean, that would pretty much sum up the World of Tanks console community, but yeah, please don't introduce this Transformers season. I assume that this was a joke question, but there we go. Will the next season challenge points be 5 or 7? We don't have any info yet, but there'll be an adjustment due to the length of next season. So I'm assuming next season might be quite short because it's the Christmas season. Yeah, I guess that's the idea. Any free tanks for Tanksmas? No news as of yet, but I assume that there will probably be a free tank for Christmas that usually comes with like a skin or something in that region. Of course, last year they released the T28 HTC with the Santa Sack premium version. I mean, it was a meme at the time, but yeah, maybe I'll do a review of that when it comes closer to Christmas so you guys can see what exactly Wargaming released last year and maybe what they'll release this year. Can you guys add a Prokhorovka back to Era 1? No plans for this due to sightlines, but we can address ways to bringing it back. Any new black camos coming? No new but camos this year, as we went with 2 new black tanks. Absolutely fine, Wargaming. That is, actually a thumbs up for me. I'd rather have tanks than camos. But yeah, it would be nice to see some more camos coming into the game than we currently usually do. When will we get medals in Cold War? We have designers on it as we speak, and we are aiming for next year. So this would be kind of cool. Definitely think that this should be a thing. I mean, I have no idea why medals were excluded from Cold War anyway, but there we go. Any news for Artillery 2.0? I want to share news with you, but our super testers are running through the changes right now, so we'll evaluate and work out what we want to move forward with. I highly recommend to Wargaming that they just basically be very, very open, honest, and just basically let us know what they are actually testing. Because it's not a big secret. No one's going to go out and, cause riots on the street, pull out their, I don't know, flaming torches and start burning all of the Wargaming offices. Just tell us what you're thinking of actually doing with artillery. I have no idea why it's all so secretive. If you're deciding that you want to make all auto-loading artilleries non-auto-loading, or you want to reduce the DPM of all artillery pieces, then just let us know, because, at least that way you'll get the feedback straight away, rather than release it into the game, give it a, here you go, here's our new release, and then everyone's like, oh, this is terrible, why didn't you just tell us that this was what you were thinking, and we'd already told you at the beginning that this was an awful idea and that no one likes it. But there we go, that's just my opinion with it. Either way, what's the new tanks reforged? Unknown at this time. I expect they basically go through a rotation of the tier 10 vehicles, so I expect it will be most likely, since we've had a lot of World War II tanks on the tanks reforged, I expect it might be, a Cold War vehicle or somewhere in that region, or maybe 2 Cold War vehicles or something else. I don't know. When can we have a new premium artillery? No plans for any premium artillery, as we're still working through the Arty changes. This is definitely a good statement from Wargaming. At least they aren't thinking about producing a new one. Is there any new nations planned for the future? Yes, Cold War will see some new nations, but no dates as of yet. How do we unlock story achievements on Xbox? Unfortunately, these are retired and can no longer be earned. So yeah, essentially, if you don't have the story achievements on Xbox, you will never be able to get them. That is just how it is, I guess. They're no longer in the game, so you cannot actually play them. So I'm not assuming Wargaming are going to bring it back just so that you can get an achievement. Can we make it so that we can trade in 2 tanks for 1 tank in trade-in events? Sorry, no plans for this at the current time. This would completely this would be a good change, because then at least you could get a premium for free by trading in 2, and not actually have to spend any money in the game. But this wouldn't make Wargaming any money, so yeah, I doubt that would be a thing. Can we do a community poll to see what players want adding to the game? We talked about a feature to get your ideas, and you should see more polls and other things in the future. Community polls are one of those things where you think it's a great idea at the beginning and then realise that basically any new change that Wargaming will basically put forward will just basically be blanket node by everyone. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, should we do this? And then there's just everyone says no. Or should we do this? Everyone says no. And that you see it with, I'm not just talking about Wargaming, by the way. This is typically with all community polls. And then there's the idea of like, what do you set as the pass rate? Is it 50-50? So 51% say yes, 49% say no, and then you go with the yes? Or do you say that the actual overall vote has to be like 70% for it to pass, or whatever it might be? You have to come up with that as well, and some rationalization behind it, because, if 51% of people say yes and then 49% of people hate the change, then it could be not particularly very good for the game's health. So it's very difficult for community polls to work, I feel like, even though, as a player myself, I thought, this would be a good idea, but having looked into community polls, I don't think that this is actually a good idea. To be honest with you, in my personal opinion, sometimes it's actually best to just try and do something and then roll it out. But yeah, just I feel like it's better to actually ask the community, like, how would you like us to implement this in the game? That's much better than just doing a community poll and saying, we're going to do this, yes or no, because that just never works. Would it be possible to add bots to custom games at some point? This would be good. I don't see why they wouldn't. I would take note of this, can't say yes or no. But slowly improving what custom games has to offer, I feel like that would be a very good change, as well as the replay system. But that's a whole new issue. And can we get weather effects again? This was a hard thing to get back into the game, and players pointed out visibility issues with these maps, but there is something coming later next year that has an incoming storm effect. Oh, not Pacific Island Typhoon, please, no. The tier 10 map that essentially means everyone has tier 1 view range, and Death Stars and Waffles just camp at the back and sit in the middle of an open field and just pump people without being ever spotted. Yeah, that was a game mode and weather variants that were just terrible, in my personal opinion, in terms of, like, trying to create a competitive game. It's just not where it's at. But, I see why some people enjoy it. And of course, as another little addition, you can see the like and dislikes from all of the people that have liked and disliked the post. So 60 upvotes, 84 downvotes. So I'm not surprised. That is pretty much just a case with every single one. But there you go. Hopefully that gives you the overview of the news. I appreciate this is a very long one, but there was lots to talk about, to be honest. And although there's not that much content coming in next week, there's a lot of news and information that Wargaming have released with this update, and of course the new Black Tanks overview as well. So thank you very much for watching. If you've made it this far, of course, if you want to check out some more content, if you have the time, then on the left-hand side will be the most recent update news that we've done, and on the right hand side will just be the gameplay and tank reviews playlist with everything, every gameplay, every tank review I've ever done on the channel, all in one playlist. And there's probably hundreds, if not a couple hundred at this point in that, to have a look through if you're interested. But other than that, I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day, and I hope you join me in one of those. Goodbye.